Welcome to How to Become a Production SQL Database Administrator. My name is Raphael. In the next several series of videos, we're going to be looking at the important concept called indexes. And specifically, we're going to address these questions. We're going to talk about what is an index, what is the purpose of an index. We're going to talk about the types of indexes and the most common type. I'm going to show you how to create an index using both the T-SQL and the GUI. And I'm also going to show you how to, when not to use indexes. Indexes are a great tool to use in terms of performance, but overusage of indexes can cause performance issues, and I'll demonstrate that to you. We're going to use a couple of tools for index tuning. One is going to be SQL Profiler, and I'll show you how that works. And then the other one is called the Database Tuning Advisor, and I'll show you how that particular engine works also. Also, I'm going to look at the database management views, which are scripts, which is a great way of looking at it rather than through a GUI. And then we're going to talk about what index fragmentation is and how to manage index fragmentation. So as you can see, there's going to be a tremendous amount of learning in understanding what indexes are. And this is one of the most important concepts that you have to understand also for performance issues. But before we even get to that, there are a few preparations that we need to do. So let's look at those. And what I need you to do is this. These are the two sites, so copy this site here. This is going to be for the SQL Server 2014. In the previous course, I've been using 2012. Certainly 2014 is out, and even 2016 is out. But we're going to now migrate to 2014 because my next courses, SSRS and SSIS, I'm going to be doing it in this platform here. So it's advantageous to start downloading this. If you want to work on a 2012, you're more than welcome to. There's very little dissimilarity between 2012 and 2014. But there are, again, changes in the interfaces. When you talk about indexes, obviously, we primarily use indexes when you have large amounts of data. So we've been using AdventureWorks 2012 database, and that does not have millions and millions of rows. So this software here will allow you to dump it. So we're going to do this. So what I need you to do is copy this here and go to the internet and paste it there, and copy this and go to the internet web browser and paste it. And I've done it here, as you can see. So when you paste the SQL Server 2014, this is the server, and I'm going to, in the next video, download this and install it, but I'm not going to go over it right now because we've already gone through how the installation of SQL Server should be done. This is not going to be in a virtual environment. I'm going to dump this actually on my desktop itself. So you're more than welcome to follow me if you wish, or if not, you can just certainly follow the 2014. There's a application, a company called Redgate, and these are the suites that they provide, and I encourage you to kind of look through them. I'm nowhere endorsing them or that, but I have utilized them in a test environment, and they are great. So the thing that we're going to be looking for and downloading is this, the SQL Data Generator. This utility, once you create a database and create a table, it allows you to dump millions upon millions of rows of whatever you wish. And this is how we're going to generate data. So I'm going to be downloading this also to generate data. So these are the two sites that you want to download. So download this and install it. Now you may need to put in your email address when you sign up. But I've already downloaded this, and I've already downloaded this. And let's go to my download folder, and we can see that here. So you'll notice that I've downloaded both the SQL Developer Suite, which is the Redgate, and I've also downloaded the 2014 SQL Server. Now, obviously, this is an ISO file, and you need to extract it. So I extracted it. Actually, I burned the ISO file to a DVD, and I encourage you to do that also. And I'm not going to go over how to burn a DVD. It's a very simple task. So basically, just go to whatever your burning application is, direct it to this, and just burn it on a DVD. And I've done that also. So here's my DVD. As you can see, DVD, and I've burned that ISO image, and this is the SQL 2012. So in this particular case, now the first thing I'm going to do before I can download the SQL suite is to install this. So I'm actually going to install SQL Server 2014. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to be relatively quick in this because I've already shown you a couple of times how to install SQL servers. But this is just going to be on the default, using the default configurations for our purposes. When we get into high availability solution, which is going to be the fourth course, then I'm going to show you step-by-step, very detailed way of how to use a virtual environment and so on. But for our purposes, this is fine. And you don't need to do this. You can use the 2012 if you wish, but that's entirely up to you. But again, I want to point out that 2014 is out and it's functional now. I personally like to wait about a year and a half before I recommend using an application. This way all the bugs have been taken out by Microsoft, if there are any. So it's a good always. Plus there's a cost to it also. So here it is. So let's go to installation, new. Now I've already got 2012, as you can see, installed here. So I'm going to do it, install another 2014. So I'll have two instances, one 2012 and one 2014. So let's look at this now. So again, I'm going to go through this process, just accepting the defaults. And then when I need to pause the video, I will pause it. So this video primarily is going to be dedicated just to installing 2012. The next one is going to be installing SQL Developer Suite. Go next, accept, and then I'll create a database here. I'll create a table, and then we'll dump data into there using that utility, and that's a great utility, as I've mentioned. So here I'm going to pause because I realize this takes about 4 or 5 minutes, and then as soon as this is over, I'll be back. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, so that quickly finished. So let's go next. Just go next. As I said, I'm going to accept the defaults, as you should. But remember, we've already discussed how to install a production SQL server in a production environment in my previous course. So I'm just going to uncheck this. I'm going to leave the reporting services because I'm going to utilize that. And I'm going to go next. And then, now since I already have an instance of 2012 installed on this, you'll notice that when I have to name it, it's not going to be the default MSQL. It's going to be a name that I provide, a named instance. I can't choose this because it's already done. So I'm going to see this is all well. Let's look at the default. We can use the default instance, I guess. And there we go. There's your error. So let's call this 2014. Let's call it SQL 2014, but you can name it whatever you wish. I go next. I don't believe it can have any error spaces. So as I said, it's going to go through this whole process, and then when it's finished, and then in the next video, we'll be talking about how to install that application that allows you to dump data. And we're going to have I'm going to do about 50 million rows because that's the true nature of, and I'm just making these manual and automatic because I don't want them to start. So we'll leave those to manual and go next. Add the current user using mix mode. Install and configure. Add current user. Next. Next. And there we go. And that, as you know, is going to take about 15-20 minutes. So I'm going to start this process. And again, when it's finished, I'll pause the video right now. When it's finished, we'll come back and we'll start the second video. So I'll see you in a second. And we're back, and as you can see, the installation of 2014 was successful. So let's just close this. Go here. I'm using a 10, so it may be slightly different. I'm going to go to Apps, and find 2014, which is right here. So as you can see, there's got some new icons, some new functionalities, but I'm going to take this right here and click it. And this is obviously the new interface for 2014. So initially it takes a few minutes to start up. So in this video, I'm going to start up the SQL Server 2014. I'm going to create a database. And then in the next video, we'll continue with populating the data. So let's just wait for this. Now, obviously, this is SQL Administration Part 2. So it's highly encouraged that you take Part 1, because it does build upon it. So let's crack this. Let's go to 14 and connect. So that first drop down that you saw was the first instance that I had of 2012. Now not much has changed here other than a few things here. But as you can see, if you've followed me with the courses, it's fundamentally the same. And high availability is not going to be available until we do clustering, so we'll get to that stage there. So right now, what I'm going to do right now is just create a database for our test purposes. I'm going to go right-click, New Database. I'm going to call this database, let's call it SQL 2. And I'm going to initially size it right here. So I know I'm going to be dumping about 100 million rows or 50 million rows, depending on what I select. So I know it's going to be a large database. So I'm going to leave this at 15 gigs. And I'm going to do this about, I usually do 10% or depending on the configuration, but right now I'll just leave it at 1,000. We'll just change this also. Let's expand this. And megabytes. And if I want it to grow in megabytes, I want it to grow in increments of 200 and not percentage. So go OK. Same thing with here in megabytes. We'll call this 50, so I don't want too many. And that should do it. So now I have a database created, 15 gigs in size. And in the next video, when we come back, I'll download the SQL Developer Suite and we'll start populating data. But right now I just want to create this and create a table. And I'll do that actually in the next video where I'll create a table. In order for you to populate the data, you need an existing table for the generator to examine. So that's what we'll do in the next video. And one thing I want you to note here is that I've tried to create a 15 gig initial size of database, and it's taken about a minute so far in executing that. I'm going to show you another what's called the Initialization File, which basically circumvents this, and you can create databases this large relatively quick, if not larger. And this is considered somewhat small size, 15 gigs. I mean, obviously, when you have databases that are in the hundreds of gigs or half a terabyte or a terabyte, and this is not that significant. But I think for our about 50 million rows that we're going to do on a table, that should be sufficient. And then we can talk about indexing and how indexes play when you have large databases and large tables specifically. So that's created right there. And we can just look at the properties here just to verify that everything is there, and there we go. So I'm just going to leave it here now, and as I said, we'll pick up in the next video where we'll talk about the SQL Developer Suite, and I'll show you how to download it and start generating data. So my name is Raphael, and this is how to become a production SQL database administrator. See you in the next video.